the Ducks. Welcome to this week's episode of Last Call Gaming. We're episode number 192. Today is April 18th. My name is Craig Perales, and joining me, Mandrew Montemayor.
Yo.
So, guys, we are pushed. I mean, it sounds like a broken record these days, but we did push our episode back a week, and it was mainly because, and one of the things I always like is if there's ever something that, we need to do or got to go do, I always say do that over forcing an episode. Because I went out, had a blast, ran into some great friends, had some drinks, really got a chance to, clear my head. Much needed, fun, very fun weekend. Andrew and Geno, however, probably had the best weekend of all going to Vegas, right?
Yeah, if we just want to jump into what are we up to.
Okay. I was explaining why we pushed back the episode, but let me just get out. Guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, hit the Linktree link for our social media, and our podcast platform is on your choice, wherever you do your audio. So, yeah, with that, let's just kind of jump into what are you up to. So that does kind of take precedence. So, yeah, what exactly did you boys do?
So when we went to Vegas, as me, Geno, and Christina, we went to go see, it's called New World Orchestra, and they do Final Fantasy, it's a Final Fantasy orchestra. Now, I believe we talked on the show about a Distant World Orchestra that we had been to before, and that was like a big, I don't know how many people, at least like a 50-person ensemble, where this was maybe like 12 people.
Oh, it was a smaller one.
Yeah, it's called New World, an intimate thing. Oh. But I actually really like it. I think it's just as good as the other one because you're getting like a more intimate sounds. Like you're really hearing the violins. A couple of the songs they did like it would just be someone on the cello and someone on the guitar doing like just a thing between them. Then they have
a couple things between them, eh?
Then they have like one dude playing the drums, but he also plays the drums, the xylophone, and like this other instrument. So it was really cool because everything really stands out versus being overpowered and having, like 5 flautists or something like that playing at like one time. So it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it a lot. I think I maybe like the other one a little bit better just because for some of the games that maybe you're unfamiliar with because they do play, stuff from like 1, 2, 14. The other one that we went to, the bigger one, has like a big screen and they have gameplay going in the background versus this one, they'd be playing music and in between songs the guy would come out or the conductor would say, that was this from what piece or whatever. But I just like having like a visual representation like, oh, okay, like, it gives me...
Yeah, like the song during the time and which game it's going for, yeah.
Yeah, that and we had like a pretty special time when we went to that last one. Because I actually had one of the women who sings in Final Fantasy X come out from Japan and did it. And that was like pretty crazy cool. Other than that, I haven't done anything else. We're going to talk about what we've been watching. Also part of why we delayed the episode so we could take our time watching it versus... feel like we're trying to rush everything. I did finish Dragon's Dogma 2. I actually really enjoyed it, and I went through and cleaned up as much achievements as I kind of wanted to. So I'm pretty happy with it. I think it...
Game of the year?
If it is, it would be in the 5 spot, I think, but it could get pushed. If anything, maybe 4, but no higher than a 4 that I could see it going. Because again, there's just a lot of little things that I kind of could have made it better. And then right now, unless you guys have recommendations or maybe you, I wanted to take a break for a week or so, not play anything, just kind of reset after cramming that game. I don't know what to play next because I don't think my big game is until, I think it's next month when Thousand Year Door comes out. So I do have Mario RPG. I was like, do I want to play that? But then I'm doing 2 Switch games coming in. But that Aiden Chronicle 100 Heroes is coming out on Game Pass. But what threw me off a little bit, it's like, oh, you choose up to 80 other people and choose between this big ensemble. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I'd really like that because I like focusing on a core cast of characters. So I'm up in the air on what I want to play next.
I was going to say, and I kind of forgot it was on there, is I forget how into the Far Cry you are, but Far Cry 6 is on the Game Pass if you're just looking for something to
see, I've never played one and we owned it. That's
one
with Giancarlo?
Yep.
Maybe I would just jump into that. I'm going to write that down,
could be fun
too.
For you. Just, just something to... That way you can still stick to just, doing a shooter and unlock some forts and shit like that.
Because I remember liking it. I remember when we were talking about it, that I'm like, oh, I think this might be the first one that I play. And then maybe something else came out that I jumped. I just never went back and did it because we bought it.
Yeah, it's there. It's there right for the pickings. And, of course, every game we buy is on Game Pass eventually. So
what have you been doing since I've been gone?
So they went to Vegas. I went out. I played some pool. I went out, I had some drinks. I had an absolutely fantastic weekend. It was nice.
I shaved 5 years of my life off in Vegas.
It was nice to get out of the house. It was nice to go hang out with some people. I was kind of hearing you and Geno talk about how crazy your guys' week was. So that sounds like a lot of fun. As far as what I've been watching, because of Andrew, I finally watched Wonka, which released on December 15th, 2023, which is the U.S. release date. I'm not sure if it released differently around. I'm sure it did in Asia and stuff, but it's on HBO if you guys want to watch it for yourself. It's got some decent scores, 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, 710 out of IMDb, 66% on Metacritic. I'm probably leaning towards the Metacritic score, even though I know Andrew really loves this, or he liked it more than I did. My biggest problem with it is there was, out of all the songs, none of them, I don't remember any of them besides Scrub Scrub. I mean, so for me, a lot of the songs were just kind of, outside of the ones they used from the original one, were kind of stale. They all kind of sounded the same to me. As much as a plot you can have, I just thought the plot was just so stupid with this corrupt church and these corrupt cops that are like taking bribes for chocolate. And I get it's supposed to be funny, it's supposed to be for a kid movie, and that's like, oh, that's funny. But at the same time, the movie gets extremely dark at one point, where there's like death involved, and I'm like, okay, except the old Wonka was crazy, but that was Gene Wilder. That was him being the crazy one, not these random people that are like ready to kill people and shoot people over essentially chocolate.
I guess so. Not to mention like the indentured servitude too,
and
stuff like that.
I have that next. Like the wash house made no sense that there's all these people there. I mean, it's. So I don't know what that wash house really even did. If it's meant for people to come in and stay the night. So anyway, I just had a long problem with that. I will say what I did like, because it's not without its charm. And again, I think I'm in the minority. I think a lot of people liked Wonka a lot. I'm so diehard with Gene Wilder's one. It's hard for me to
that one's hands down.
Yeah. So I will say this: Timothée Chalamet is fantastic. He does a fantastic role as Willy Wonka.
I'm glad you at least.
He was my favorite part because the biggest bugged me was the rest of the characters. I didn't like really anybody except for Timothée Chalamet's character as Willy Wonka, and then I really liked the guy that played Slugworth, Patterson Joseph. I really liked his character. He was kind of a really cool rendition of that. I loved all the throwbacks that they do. Like I love when he does the whistle. I actually extremely liked Hugh Grant as the Oompa Loompa.
Yes,
he was hilarious. That was one of my favorite parts. So again, it's worth watching, I would say. But unlike where I watched Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory dozens of times, I'll probably never watch this movie again.
Would you put this over at least Johnny Depp's movie?
So okay, that's funny. Somebody had a quote and they said the original one's the best. The remake was trash, and this one falls somewhere in between that. I would say yeah, but I'd go a little bit higher on the scale than trash. Like I would put it probably right a little over the middle for it. Like I said, 66% for me. So out of a 1 to 100, I'd probably lean on that. But for me, it was just I didn't like Noodle. I didn't like really outside of the Slugworth. I didn't like the bad guys. I didn't like this whole corruption of chocolate. I'm like, huh. So
I kind of love that, especially Peel, because you just get is it Peel or Key that's in this one? I always get their names mixed up.
Yeah, it's Keegan-Michael Key.
Key, because then he just gets like gradually fatter and fatter.
And that was funny, but again at the same time, I'm like, okay, so
it is a little ridiculous.
And I only watched it for Andrew, so I can now stop listening to Andrew come over and say, "Have you watched Wonka yet?" So, with that being said, I ended up playing a little bit more. I finally got a little further in Final Fantasy VII Remake. When I was playing before, I was in the beginning of Chapter 2. I'm now, I think, in Chapter 4. I've finally been able to explore the world, see all the kind of new, like on any good map, there's different locations you want to check out, like the fast travel systems, the chocobo stuff. It took me a while because I haven't played it in so long. I had to remember all the combat and like how putting in people's abilities. Like I didn't even know how to change the party. I had to remember, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a tab in there that lets you make a group of 3. So I actually fought I always forget the snake from Midgar. I always forget his name.
Isn't it like Zolomon or something?
I completely forget. But dude, that fight scene was awesome. And I was finally like, man, this has really, like, not in the kaiju type way, but it had a really good like Final Fantasy 16 boss fight, and it's clearly a different game that's following a path of Final Fantasy VII, because they're seeing Sephiroth stuff. There's a whole point where Barrett in Red 13, because I don't think any time in the game you play without Cloud except for when his mind breaks, right? And they're dragging him around.
In the original, yeah.
Yeah, and in this one, there was a whole scene in the beginning where they get separated and you're playing with just Barrett in Red 13. I'm like, oh, that's cool, and I hope there's a lot more of that. So I am going to start diving much more into it, but I wanted to play something else that was kind of chapter-based just because I wasn't putting all my time into that, so I started playing Alan Wake 2, and I finished the first little portion, and I was playing it actually before Andrew got here. Chapter 1.
I thought you beat Alan Wake 2.
No, I only beat 1. I didn't start Alan Wake 2. But my TV is purple now, and I showed Andrew this picture of how bad it is, because I have my Xbox on one and the PlayStation on the other one. It never really was that bad. You know, Geno always pointed it out, but I'm like, I don't think it's that bad. And then one day Denny came over and he's like, dude, I just thought you were colorblind. Like, that's purple. And I was like, okay. And it was after that day that it noticeably got progressively worse and worse. So I found a really sweet deal. I've got a new Samsung 55-inch smart TV coming. I'm supposed to be getting it tomorrow, so hopefully I can get that all set up, and then I can actually start going back and forth, because I think I do need to play like some Final Fantasy and then like Alan Wake, or like I even want to, dude, I've been kind of craving some Yakuza.
Oh, I would love for you to get into one of those. How much was the TV? Is it 4K? And most importantly, because I kind of need a new TV too, but what I'm waiting for is I want to get something that's actually 120 frames.
I've got to double check the specs because I didn't check them. Bianca has a hookup with the electronics where she works. So I just asked, hey, what's the cheapest TV you can get me that's 55 inches and a decent brand? So for $200, Samsung 55 inch. So I was like, yeah, I'll jump on that.
Even if it wasn't 120, I'd still take that as a replacement.
Yeah, so I was like, thank you for that. So I should have a nice, fresh TV. Because even TK was asking me, I was like, are we playing Halo or not? I'm like, dude, it's hard to play maps when they're purple, dude. Like, I can't see out there. So that, guys, is what we have been up to. Let us know down below what you guys have been playing and what, my friends, you guys have been watching. So with that down out of the way, we're going to keep the same stories that we had from last week. I think it's still going to be interesting to talk about them. And the first one is the Fallout show dropped. We're essentially at the halfway point. I finished 4, and I think it's a good episode to stop on. Andrew did 5, so I'm going into 5. He's going on to 6.
Out of 8.
And then out of 8 episodes. And so we won't do any spoilers right now. I do want to dive into the aesthetic and the characters right now, but there's a lot of people saying, because it's getting great reviews, 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, 4.7 out of 5 out of the average audience rating summary, 8.7 on IMDb. So it did come out of the gate strong. If you guys aren't familiar with it, it's in a future post-apocalyptic Los Angeles brought about by nuclear decimation. Citizens must live underground bunkers to protect themselves from radiation, mutants, and bandits. It first aired on April 10th of 2024. This is based on the Fallout games by Bethesda Softworks. So this is a video game adaptation. A lot of people are saying it's fantastic. So this is kind of just early views of pretty much halfway through the season of what we think. Because one of the big comments that I was seeing is people are like, oh, it's just as good, if not better, than The Last of Us, which I wouldn't say that this show by any means is the worst video game adaptation show, but for me it's clearly not the best video game adaptation show. I actually, in the first 4 episodes, I had more fun with Twisted Metal. Now that's not to say the show's not going to get better, but in the first 4 episodes, like, I actually really disliked it. Like, the first episode, I was like, man, this show isn't really doing it for me, but I'm going to get through this. Because you could argue Last of Us' best episode was episode 3, right? So they came out the gate pretty good. And 4, the episode I ended on 4, I was like, okay, now this is getting to the point where I want to go. So before we dive into all that, expectations that this maybe could have been the best video game. It sounds like you like it, at least episode 1 to 5, better than maybe I started out.
I love it.
Okay.
And I actually do think I like it better than The Last of Us. Now, but that's for different reasons. The Last of Us, and the reason I can understand people saying it, is it's a lot darker, and it's where this, you're just having fun.
Yeah.
Like, it's just really fun, and it's an original story. Whereas The Last of Us, you have a set path, and we already know what's going to happen. So I think that's the biggest thing for maybe where someone could see that. Because even like, let's say, lead that into, like, later on, I know what's going to happen in The Last of Us 2, and you and me weren't crazy 10 out of 10s about the game, whereas that's the path it has to take now. And small spoiler alert, a lot of people know what's going to happen in The Last of Us 2. The biggest thing that happens a few hours into the game has to happen early in the show.
From what I'm hearing, though, they're redoing 2. It's not saying that's not going to happen, but it's not going to be as early as I think people think it is.
I would hope so, because Christina, who doesn't play the game, she's like, you know what, an article popped up that said Pedro Pascal's already wrapped up with The Last of Us while they're still filming. She's like, that sucks. So obviously something's going to happen to him early that I don't even know if I'd want to watch the rest of the show, because their dynamic is what makes it. And I'm like, that's really funny perspective to have, because people were getting shit about that when it happened in the game. Whereas again, Fallout, it's just in this universe. So they have some set rules to abide by, but they could really do anything. I think that's the best part about it.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Is that they're not tied to anything. They don't have to do anything. But like you're saying, they do exist in this world. That these things do happen. My biggest thing of why I wasn't liking it is I have a big problem with Maximus. I don't care for his character, and when the show starts, I was really just like, man, I don't like this guy at all. So I guess we'll kind of start there. There's 3 different things I kind of wanted to talk about for the show that we can point out, but we'll leave. It was going to be characters, story, and the aesthetics and the CGI, but I think we'll put story aside, and then maybe by the time we both finish it, we can come back and talk about it. But so for now, we'll get into the characters, and this comes from Forbes. If you guys want to read the full link, it's in the description. It says, the story revolves around 3 main characters 200 years after a nuclear war basically destroyed everything, driving some survivors into underground bunkers called vaults. Ella Purnell plays Lucy McLean, a vault dweller through unfortunate circumstances, leaves a relative safety of Vault 33 and travels to the surface on a life or death mission. She's joined by Maximus, played by Aaron Clifton Moten, a squire in the secretive Brotherhood of Steel, power armor-wearing knights who roam the land looking for lost technology. Maximus is almost as green as Lucy, venturing out on a quest he's not very well prepared to tackle. And finally, rounding out the main trio, we have Walter Goggins.
First of all,
as the Ghoul.
Walton Goggins is his new name.
Walton Goggins as the Ghoul, a gunslinging bounty hunter and mutant who's managed to live for over 200 years. We learn more about his past as celebrity Cooper Howard through a number of flashbacks. So let's start with Lucy. She is essentially the main character. She'd be the lead, I consider. She is the Vault Dweller. I love the actress. I didn't know what she looked like. She's in Yellow Jackets, but I don't watch that. But I know she did the voice of Jinx from Arcana and Jane from Invincible. So it's nice to kind of see her get a nice role. I love her. I love her, like, happy-go-lucky, fucking cookie-cutter kind of personality. Her whole okie dokie. Like, yeah. I'm in love with her. So for her coming out of this this kind of past where they're stuck in maybe like the 40s or 50s, like she still has that very ditzy kind of vibe. I think so in episode 4, she finally kind of hits this turning point, and you're starting to kind of see now this girl that's in the wasteland. So I'm like, excellent. I like where this is going. So as far as Ellie Purnell's portrayal of Lucy McLean, how do you like that character, and do you think she's handling the show well? And then anything else you want to add?
No, I think she is one of the strongest parts of the show. She is so good, especially, like you said, with her personality. And that's one of the more interesting things to watch in the show, is what is going to break first. Is the Wasteland going to break her, or is she going to break the Wasteland? Is she going to be like everybody else with these raiders, or is she going to rise and overcome and stick to her? She brings up the golden rule. Do unto others as you would want done to you.
I think I had golden rule written down. Yeah, so I think she's fantastic. Anything else you want to say on here? And then we'll kind of do a recap at the end. But Maximus next?
Yeah, sure.
I hate Maximus. He's a shitty, lying, deceitful person, and you see this from episode 1. And the only thing I'm hoping is he gets better. Now, I haven't seen episode 5. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But my favorite episode so far has been 4. And I realized at the end, I'm like, oh, you know why I love this episode? He's not in it. Which I'm kind of scared now, because now I might be like, oh shit, there's probably going to be an episode now that's just Maximus. However, he is starting to show some redeeming qualities, like when he helps out, I think his name's like Titanus or whatever the squire is, and he helps pull him out.
Oh, the new one from the Gulper?
Pulls him out. Dude, they have like a kind of funny dynamic going, but just leading up, everything he's just been doing up until then, I don't like. Obviously he's playing the character. I'm not saying the actor. He's playing the character the way the character is supposed to be. I don't like that character. And and again, that's why I don't want to dive too much into the story, because I don't want to spoil anything for you guys. Feel free to watch it. But it does seem like he's getting a little cooler and a little more redemption. I don't like how there's clearly this love interest for the 2 seconds they've met each other and smiled at each other. So I don't know. My initial impression of this guy was, And to be honest with you, when I was watching the trailers, he's the one I had the highest hopes for. I'm like, dude, I cannot wait to see the Brotherhood of Steel. And for me, it's just not clicking yet. I really hope that changes, but I hated him in the first episode and every episode after that.
See, it's not so much that I hate him, but I feel like maybe I'm not supposed to like him because of things that he does.
Right.
And it's not that I hate watching him. I'm watching it and I'm like, dude, you're kind of a POS and doing these things that just, now you're just deeper and deeper into this hole, and now it's snowballing kind of out of control. And at some point, it's going to get away from you. So if that's the way they're playing his character, and he's not really supposed to be like a hero, but also not like a raider.
But he's backstabbing everybody, and then that stupid smile he does when he gets away with it. I'm like, ugh.
And so I like him for what he is supposed to be. I didn't mind kind of the little bit of love intro, because I take it as like she's starstruck because she's never seen anything like that, and he loves being recognized for that glory. Yeah. So that's why he's into her.
I see it. So I just don't like it.
I wouldn't care for it to go further. At some point, too, she's going to have to find out whatever. I mean, something's going to come to a head.
Yeah, so
I would say out of the three leads for the trio, not counting the vault stuff, the outside world, he would be the weakest out of the three.
Okay, that's where I'm putting him too. So where he's number 3, Lucy's number 2, then clearly Walter Goggins as the Ghoul is hands down. I don't want to say saving the show, because I do obviously like it. A lot of people like it. For me, I had a slow, rocky start, but he made the show. Like everything I didn't like about episode 1, he saved it, and then he's just been better in every episode so far. So I don't know. I mean, it's hard to not like Walter Goggins. He's fantastic in everything, but for me, this is like a standout point for him. Like the character that he's doing. Not to mention when they do the flashbacks of his.
I love the flashbacks
of the character he used to be, which is Cooper Howard. Yeah, you kind of see this flashback of where he was like it seemed like a fading star, right? There's some points where he's successful, but in the beginning he's doing like birthday parties. But he's always had this kind of this Western vibe to him, and then now it's just now it's fully like, hey, I'm an outlaw. He's when you meet a couple other ghouls and stuff, you find out that he's one of the longest living ones out of all of them. Pretty much since day one, he stayed alive, and everything he does is like, okay, this show, I'm so glad they have him, because he is the wasteland.
Yeah. That's if Lucy is the one side of the coin, he is the other side of the coin. And that's also part of that relationship, is he's trying to break her spirit. And so that's the other thing. It's like, well, who's going to break first? Is she going to get through to him, or he's going to get through to her? And I love that dynamic when these two are like together. It's the best.
Yeah, so
I would say he steals pretty much every scene that he's in. And I, for the little bit that where you get the intro before it jumps to Modern Fallout where he's doing the party, is so sick, because it's not even that big. Like a scene really focuses around him. You just have him where you're kind of seeing the fading star, but he's explaining to his daughter something about thumb safety or whatever, and then the bomb hits, and she's like,
your thumb or mine?
Your thumb or my thumb? And I'm like, oh, that's so dope. Especially because I was just explaining, because people didn't know that for the longest time, that he's like, well, he's not doing a thumbs up on the cover. He's really trying to see how safe he is from a bomb. And just the way they do everything in the show,
he's a little dusty,
is the best, but he is so great.
Yeah, I think hands down he's what the show needed. So again, I don't want to dive. Next we would have David jumped into the story, but let's save that for you guys to watch it, and then we can maybe talk about it next week. But before we get past the main 3, is there anybody else that stands out to you? Because I really enjoy, and I really didn't like him at first, is the younger brother. Norm McLean, and
his nose is huge,
and then the cousin Chet, dude, which was funny. I love you. It's okay to do. Hey, we're past doing cousin stuff.
Yeah,
I've got to move on with my life, because in the vault there's only so many people you can hang out with, and her and him had a relationship.
Yeah.
But I like that he's kind of got this. He's got more of the tech mind. Like, he doesn't like being in this vault, and he's slowly starting to crack. That's what I'm saying. Number 4 for me was the turning point, because it dives more into what's going on in the vault. And you start getting some answers. You start seeing Lucy kind of turn, and you kind of see what it's like to be a ghoul out in the wasteland, and what you have to do to survive. So for me, he's another character that I think is really good, because I hated the council. I hate pretty much everybody in the vault. But the brother, I like how we're kind of seeing as a side story what's going on in the vault, and what's going on with the mom, and because we still at least when the dad, whatever happens with the dad, I don't know much about it yet. But it seems like he's going to be cracking that case.
Yeah, I would say, and that's something better that Halo does is when you have, or something that they do better than Halo is when you have this other story going on. You're at least interested in these people versus like Quan's whatever the hell they're doing.
Nonsense.
No, I really like them too. I do like I just don't. It's hard to say that I don't like them because that's how they're supposed to be. But the temporary overseers, those guys, they're like, well, what do we do with these raiders? You know, we're trying to rehabilitate them. It's like, no, you're an idiot, and that's not going to work. But the third one, the old woman, I can't remember her name right now. But once you find out some more stuff from her, like it's just more devious and getting deeper into this hole now too. She's actually pretty great.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. As far as any other Thaddeus, that's what the new squire's name is. So I liked him. So anything else with any of the characters? I think it's a strong cast, and it's so far so good.
Yeah, I was gonna say I wouldn't say that there's anyone I run into. I'm like, if this acting's bad or like that could have been better or whatever. Anyone you meet, even if it's like a kind of like a smaller person, I mean they come and go. But actually the introduction I really like is that other ghoul that they meet.
When he's like, that's right. Why am I doing all the fucking work? He's like, what do you say? That ass
jerky ain't gonna cut itself.
Ain't gonna cut itself, and then she goes down and dude. So yeah, he's clearly making her learn that the outside world is harsh. So as far as that goes, let's move into like the aesthetics and the CGI. I feel like the show really captures the game perfectly. I really like the way his armor suit looks. I think all their blue outfits, all the Fallout gear pops. What else do they have? I love the way that they're doing all the Pit Boys. I love that they're throwing in things like like stim packs. How like it really makes sense. Like at one point something's dying, gives it a stim pack, pops back up. I'm like, cool, no questions asked. Let's just assume that that's exactly what it does. I feel like when you're uptight and close with the world, everything looks good. The raiders look good. My one hiccup was kind of like for how much money Amazon has. Every time they do like the pull-out shot and you're kind of getting the scenery, even if you look at it like a Last of Us, I feel like it looks just really fake, and it's just hard. It just sucks when like Amazon did Rings of Power and put how much money into that to make everything look real as shit. So it's like I wish they would have spent a little bit more to make, like when she walks up when she's running around the thing and then she stops and she's looking at like the wasteland with all the cities and stuff. I just thought it looked a little cheesy, but as far as everything else goes, I feel like everything else feels real. At
some point, yeah, there are some things like before she gets in town or before they get to town, they're walking through that little segment of forest. It's like that's clearly like a smaller kind of like it's. I don't want to say like obvious, but it's so different than like being a natural feeling, or even when they cut to the part with the water where the gulper lives and stuff. So I wouldn't say that's a big problem, but I think that would be the biggest problem in the show, really. And it's not even that big a problem. I think they absolutely nail everything, and they're super faithful to the game. I mean, like as far as the drugs, the jet, you see everyone pretty much do everything. Even when they have like the automaton, like his voice, I'm pretty sure it's the same voice actually just ripped.
Oh,
from
dude,
the
that
game.
was the robot that wants to slice everything up.
Yeah,
dude, that's one of the best parts. And when you get to it, you'll know. Well, other than that, then, because you can't have Fallout without having some of the bad guys or the mutants and stuff. So. The ghouls are hands down perfect. They nailed that look for these kind of things. The gulper I thought looked good. The cockroaches looked decent. The bear was the biggest thing I had a problem with. Do you remember that old? It's an old commercial where I think it's like a fisherman or like a lumberjack, and he's doing something and like the bear steals his fish. And he starts chasing him, and he like kicks him, and the bear turns around and they stand up and start boxing. I was like, it looked like that. It looked like that's what they were gonna do when they're standing up and they're like hitting each other. I'm like, man, I wish that thing just would have looked a little more detailed because it didn't look bad, but like when you've got Amazon money, you shouldn't have like a budget. That thing should have looked real. I think that thing should have looked awesome. So for me, so far, everything else has looked pretty cool. The bear for that moment was the one thing that kind of pulled me out, and all I could think was that old commercial where him and that lumberjack are like boxing each other.
That didn't bug me, but what I do love is that they have put
I'm gonna see if I can find that commercial.
They put a stamp pretty much on how ferocious ghouls are. So when you play Fallout, you just run through ghouls like they're no tomorrow. Like they are not that big a deal. You take hits all day. It's no different than a rad roach, Whereas this, just one or two of them are deadly, and they'll like rip out your throat. It's almost like they're pretty much like a zombie, and they're fast and ferocious.
Yeah.
So I really liked how dangerous. They really put that stamp on, like, you know, when they are feral, they are extremely dangerous, and that's a reason for people to hate them.
And I think it's fair because I think we've already been making jokes about it. Is they've nailed the comedy too, because I think that's one of the things that you got to make sure that this thing has is jokes. Right, you got to make light of this bad situation, and I don't think there's not one episode so far out of the 4 that I haven't like laughed at. So, was there anything else with characters or the aesthetics or CGI? Because I just have one more thing I want to point out, and then we can move on. Unless there's something you want to say.
Not unless you.
Oh yeah,
feel like it fits with that.
Yeah,
so,
timeline.
I mean, I don't know if it's from the success of the show that maybe they came out and said something. I know some people were complaining about it, but it pretty much, so far, it has been true to the game. But they did move the timeline around like a little bit. I know some people were complaining about it, but this came straight from like Todd Howard and Bethesda, that the strict order of the games, and they moved some of the years around. So for Fallout, the bombs drop and this is canon going forward, I guess now, would be the bombs dropped in 2077. Fallout 76 would be technically the first game, and that's in 2102. Fallout 1 takes place in 2161. Fallout Tactics, 2197. Fallout 2 is 2241. Fallout 3 is 2277. Fallout New Vegas is 2281. And that is kind of where more people, like, that one is really, I think, the biggest one that kind of got shifted in the timeline, because they do come across Shady Sands, which is some area that you go to in New Vegas is blown up. So people were really complaining about it, but I'm like, it's not really that big a deal to, you know, it shift the timeline. Fallout 4 would be 2287, and this takes place at the end at 2296.
This is the furthest one out of all of them.
Yeah, so this is the furthest one out, about 220 years after the bombs actually drop. And then I actually want to ask you a question, because this was on a separate IGN article that I don't agree with, and maybe you could speak to it more, because I've loved it since the beginning, and I thought it was a dumb article, but they're like, oh, this show suffers because it was released all at once. This should have been a week-to-week show because it's like that good. And I'm like, you couldn't find anything else to complain about, though. That's what you're going to complain about. It's like, I feel like that's a dumb argument, especially, too, for somebody who maybe didn't like the show for the first couple episodes. You might have fallen off week to week versus now that you feel it's starting to pick up for you. Like, okay, now I can really binge this and get into it, versus you might not have even stayed with it week to week. I just thought it was a weak article, and I'm loving the fact that I can binge this.
Yeah, it's funny because I had something. That's the last thing I was going to pull up too and ask you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's all good. Is the binge model, because there's two sides of the coin. It's like, do I want to have it all at once? Yes, but is that good for the show? Because it's one of the things that you notice. It's like Stranger Things. It comes out and it's awesome, but you only talk about it for a week. So because usually outside of Netflix, and Netflix does the model of dropping everything at once. Usually it's not a good sign when they drop it all at once, because that means they want you to power through bad episodes, or maybe if it's not as weak, be like, I'm not going to get off the couch. I'm just going to keep watching one more. So I did, because I don't know if you'd have the article at all pulled up, but so I had the Forbes one pulled up, and it does point out exactly what Andrew is saying and what I'm talking about. It says, my one problem with the show is that it will soon fade from the public conversation entirely, thanks to Amazon dumping all 8 episodes onto Prime Video at once. I know many people like to binge watch their TV these days, but it's genuinely a huge disservice to the show, its creators and cast, and to the fans to release everything at once. Amazon often drops a couple episodes at once and then airs the rest weekly. Shows like The Boys and The Rings of Power have followed this weekly model, and when those shows air, they're talked about for weeks. The Netflix model I had a burp coming. Netflix model almost always means that a show gets a bunch of buzz for a week or two and then disappears completely. No water cooler talk on Monday mornings like we had for Game of Thrones, and so many great shows for the past. Remember the live-action Avatar? That dropped in February and then almost completely disappeared. Meanwhile, The Last of Us on HBO generated weeks of buzz and excitement. The article's long if you do want to read it, but first of all, Amazon doesn't owe the creators and cast and fans anything. So that's bullshit. They don't owe you anything. They can do whatever they want with what they paid for. Is it smart to do it? We're slowly seeing the answer to that is no. The answer is no. You shouldn't. You want to be in conversations every week. You want things, because if someone's writing an article about you every week about the new episode, then guess what? You're getting more people that might have a chance to sign up for your service. And when it's binge watching, it's gone in a week, and I forgot to sign up for Amazon. You're never going to think about it again. So
I was going to say, so many people have Amazon that the reason I kind of disagree with it is it's a new IP and who knows how it was going to do. We know now, in retrospect, that it is amazing. That who's to say they couldn't change it for the second season? Now we'll do 1-1-1.
Yeah.
So that way we can do whatever the thing. But I think for something that was so untested, I felt like maybe that was a better choice because it's not like Fallout. Fallout's not, I don't think, the name like Halo or like The Last of Us, where even if you don't play games, people know it.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because it is one of the easier shows to jump in without having to know anything about the games. Like, The Last of Us follows the game. Halo, you want to know who the Covenant and Master Chief and all these guys are. Fallout feels like a real pick up and watch, but yeah, you don't want to... I don't know. You don't want to miss out on conversation if you think what you had was good. So I'm on the fence about it, but I completely disagree that Amazon doesn't owe anybody anything. So,
and I think it's funny that people have that kind of argument for this sort of thing, whereas let's say they dropped Elden Ring in like February. If it's that good, you'll talk about it through the rest of the year. That was a one-time experience that you can replay throughout the year. You could rewatch this throughout the year too. No one says that about like video games. Like, oh, well, this should have been dropped closer to the game of the year, so that way it could be in the conversation. It's like, no, you drop it when it's ready. Nobody's like, oh, well, maybe we should put half of The Last of Us Part 2 out now for the game, and we'll do the other half towards the game of the year. It's like, no, you drop the game, and it either survives on its merits or it does not.
Yeah, and it's, the only thing that you miss out on is when someone's head gets blown up, everyone's like, dude, did you see that episode last night? Or the Red Wedding or something like that. So I can't speak for it or not, but I don't think there's been a moment like that in Fallout yet. So I don't know if the last 4 episodes do that. But if they watch this and they're like, man, there really is no big pop moment. The story ends and she has it and it's good. But if you don't got these things that have a constant like, whoa, did you see that part? Did you see that part? Then I think it's safe to put it all out. Like she's talking about the live action Avatar. Avatar didn't have any what the fuck moments. So it's like, if the show, and again, when I watch the last 4, I'll see. But so far, I haven't seen any of that yet. So I don't think they're hurting at all by putting Fallout on it, because it's going to be, because if it's a show that's that good and didn't suck, it will be continued to be talked about. So I agree with you on that. Anything else?
No.
All right.
Go out there and watch it.
Go watch it. Let me wait for this bad boy to pull up. So tell me, Andrew, how are things? Okay, so this is pulling up. So the next thing, guys, we want to get into is that Sarah Bond, the newly promoted president at Xbox, I believe she's been there for less than 6 months or something like that. There was a big article that came out, compliments of Windows Central. I believe they had the exclusive, talking about a few different things. So read the article, because it's a big article and it's really interesting. But they kind of pointed out a couple different things. So I'm going to skip. I'm going to go over the other two and mainly talk about the last one. And it's the first one is that they're talking that gaming AI is going to be a kind of a big thing moving forward with their hardware, with a couple other incentives for the hardware, but until we know more what that's about, really not much to say about it. I mean, they're talking about how NPCs are going to generate conversations, maps and things like that. So moving forward, that is something they're talking about with future hardware. The other thing they brought up was integrating more Activision, Blizzard, and King games to Game Pass, which, they slowly have been doing since the big acquisition of them. But now I guess Diablo 4 is the biggest game that they have and where people are playing it on Xbox. What did he do? What does it all mean, Basil? But the big thing I wanted to talk about was the game preservation and backwards compatibility and moving forward with the systems, because, let me read this first and we'll dive into it. So, hey, it's a big one, so hold on to your butts. It says, recently the preservation of games has become an increasing concern as the shift to digital licensing models and online services has made it too easy for games to go permanently offline. To go permanently offline. It's a massive problem in mobile gaming where publishers and companies like Apple and Google have no problem wiping games from existence. Even core platforms like Nintendo are known to shut down for stores, offlining many games. Microsoft is closing parts of the Xbox 360 store this year for new purchases. However, hundreds of the most popular Xbox backward compatible games escape the 360 and continue to live on the Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S platforms. It seems that now they'll live on even further. As part of the emails to her team, Sarah Bond revealed that Microsoft has now set up a dedicated team to ensure the future-proofing of the current Xbox game library against future hardware's paradigm shifts, ensuring that our games remain accessible long into the future. We have formed a new team dedicated to game preservation, important to all of us at Xbox and the industry itself, Bond said. We are building on our strong history of delivering backwards compatibility to our players, and we remain committed to bringing forward the amazing library of games for future generations of players to enjoy. Now, if you're not into backwards compatibility or you're not kind of forward thinking of hardware moving forward, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it is extremely important, because one of the biggest things when we were moving forward is up until the Xbox 360 era and the PS3, well, actually, really not, because the Super Nintendo didn't do it, N64 did it, so it wasn't really until recently that when PS1 did it that we started seeing it. But there are stores, like storefronts, that are just disappearing. Like Nintendo took down the Wii and the Wii U one. They took down a couple of the Game Boy ones. Casey was telling me about they were taking down some of the Pokemon transfer lists, so if you wanted to go get them, you had to do it before a certain date. PlayStation's one of the biggest...
Even that, you had to transfer it from like one to another just to get it up to current.
And yeah, because it's hard to do. I mean, it might sound easy, but like PlayStation has been struggling with it for a while. Now the PS Plus has a lot of cool stuff. You can start playing PSP games and a lot of old stuff, but a lot of it's streaming. You're not able to download it, right, and play it natively. It's a streaming thing, so there's only so much they can do with it. And if you don't have internet to do it, then you can't do it. So I think it's really cool that Microsoft, and more importantly, Xbox, is looking at this going, no, we need to make sure that more of this stuff can come over, and not just to preserve it, but to just make sure the body of games is still existing whenever you want to play it. Because there's certain games that I would love to go back and play that just like aren't there, or if you don't have an old system of it that hasn't been, updated to play it. So I don't know. We don't have to talk about it for very long, but what did you think about the concept that a whole new team is kind of diving into, just to make sure moving forward we've got those games forever?
No, I like that, because I mean that is something that's important, and that's something that they really have been putting the effort into, especially once I brought over the 360 games and then the OG Xbox games, when they're like, oh, we're not sure if we can do that, but we'll try, and somehow they found a way to make it work. So if I want to play Peter Jackson's King Kong for that easy thou, I can go back and do it, whereas it almost seems like Nintendo kind of does fuck all, or throws on these like half-assed ROMs that they probably got from like a ROM site that they sued, but they're like, here you can play this. And then PlayStation, yeah, you're right, it's not the same thing, plus you have to pay for the premium service just to be able to do it, whereas I think even with the basic Xbox One, you're at least able to access them.
Yeah, and it's one of the things why...
Or if you've ever purchased it, from your old store.
Right,
yeah.
But I like why Microsoft is still in the game and Xbox is still in the game, because you need... Once they can crack that and get it all going, then other companies are going to be able to do it. Because, like, you got to remember, they are a computer company first, and it looks like that's what they need to do this. Microsoft is helping figure this out. Nintendo will never do it. PlayStation can try, but they've been trying for a decade now, or a decade plus.
I was saying, I don't think that they even really tried and put that much effort until Xbox announced, hey, here's these 360 games, and then the Xbox games, because that's when you almost kind of really seem to like light a fire under their ass. So like, all right, well, we got to make this work somehow.
Yeah, and the other thing too, before we get off of this, is in both, excuse me, I hit that wrong pipe, is in both of these things they're talking about with the AI moving forward and the preservation of games, they brought up hardware like 3 times. So I think it kind of puts to bed that they're not going to be making hardware in the future. Like, I feel like they're kind of saying, like, no, we're ready for it and we want the hardware. And I think it's just going to be a mixture of both. Game Pass will be on everything. It will be integrated into TVs. It will be on every tablet and phone. But I don't see their hardware going. And just from reading this paragraph, and again, read the article, everything they keep mentioning with hardware and future, I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like you're gearing up for just one more iteration. It sounds like you're ready for it to at least go, I don't know, 10, 20 years plus.
Yeah. I mean, either way, it's just good to hear somebody like kind of really double down and say, like, we're going to make this work no matter what. We have to make this work because it is important. Yeah, no, I think it's one of the most important things to do. So, is there anything else on that you want to touch on? So, guys, I had a question pulled up, and I'm not even lying. Like, I forgot to write it down. So, because I had questions of the week ready, but I don't have the question to read out loud, and I forget exactly what it was about. So, we will answer it on the next episode, and I'm sorry for whoever wrote it in, but I got you on the next one. So, guys, that is the end of episode 192. Join us next week for episode 193. And until then, guys, my name is Craig Perales. That is Mandrew the Ghoul Montemer. Cheers. Go watch Wonka.